A Clockwork Raisin.
Hey guys, it's Valentine here. Before we get fist deep into this week's video, we just want to give a big thank you to our friends over at Huion, who have sent us a brand new pen display tablet to help us keep producing art and animated content for you guys. Let's take a quick look at what this high quality, affordable piece of technology has to offer. First impressions are great. The product is packaged beautifully, on par with the quality of Wacom product packaging. Also, just FYI, we're going to be comparing this product with Wacom display tablets a lot, purely because that's what we're used to working with here at CultureCrash. And this Kamvas Pro 13 model is very similar in build to this tablet that we use here. The tablet was first tested without the driver installed, just checking the quality of the display and how accurate the colors were. Surprisingly, the unit worked very well without the driver anyway, only really lacking the pressure sensitivity. Once the correct driver was downloaded and installed though, the tablet really spoke for itself. We were worried that the brushstrokes might have shown up wobbly and unsmooth, but this worry was dismissed immediately. Even with no pen stabilizer, you could create some really crisp lines. Something very admirable about this product is that it comes complete, equipping you with a bunch of accessories you would have needed to purchase otherwise. For example, in addition to the obvious tablet, pen, and cables, you also get a smudge guard glove and a tablet stand. Although this stand could use some work, but I'll touch on that in a moment. I feel like the only thing this tablet is missing is perhaps a carry case of some sort, but for the price point and the amount of freebies you already get, I suppose you can't really complain. Anyway, back to the stand for a second. It's nice in design, folds down to be a really compact accessory and is really sturdily built. However, it really impacts the use of the tablet if you put too much pressure on the top of the unit, and does this. Just slides right off. Keep in mind that this is just a display, a monitor, not an all-in-one device like a lot of other tablets on the market. You plug this into your laptop via HDMI and USB and also into a general wall outlet, and then you're good to get drawing. We haven't been told to say nice things about this company, by the way, just asked to do a brief and honest review. We have no real reason to speak highly of Huion, although I do own a Huion tablet myself, if we didn't genuinely enjoy the product. And judging by how this tablet has performed so far, we're certain that it's worth checking out, and definitely worth the asking price.
Hey guys, Culture here with a musing of a misconnection, an unrealized romance. This story can best be thought of as a Facebook Messenger chat log, where one person waves to the other waves back, and then neither says anything. The spoiled opportunity that such an exchange represents is capable of both depressing and infuriating the onlooker. The frustration of inaction, or, in this case, the fumbled reaction, can be soul-deadening, cringe-inducing. With that in mind, I'd like to preemptively defend myself here. I certainly could have handled things better, but I also could have handled things much worse. I realize that defense doesn't exactly hold up in court, but perhaps in the court of public opinion, it might. This preamble has gone on long enough. Here's my story for today, titled A Clockwork Raisin. I was waiting at the station with a couple of friends on our way back out from the city, discussing something or other. The conversation turned, as it always inevitably does, to girls. In particular, I believe we were discussing one of my friend's flings. In the course of providing our own underdeveloped and naive opinions, a girl next to us piped up. "It's good to know guys talk about this stuff as well," she said, catching the three of us off guard. She was blonde, around our age, which was 20 or so at the time, and had a curious intellectual face. Let's call her Choc Chip. I don't know about you, but the thought of interjecting into a random group's conversation with this kind of remark gives me stomach ulcers. The sheer confidence she must have had to say something like that to complete strangers certainly caught my attention. Choc Chip hopped on the train with us, and we spoke until we had to get off the train. In that time, I learned that Choc Chip was a writer and motivational speaker who was incredibly involved with social movements and community endeavors. She was just starting out, of course, but this explained her ability to strike up conversations so easily. But while her speech work was mostly political in nature, her writing was another thing altogether. She liked to write young adult fiction, coming-of-age stories about women who learnt to love themselves before loving others. It's not exactly something that appealed to me, but then again, it wasn't meant to. Writing as an interest, however, was something I could completely understand, and I really enjoyed the brief conversation we had. She was easy to get along with, smart, and somewhat spiritual. I kept in contact with Choc Chip over the next few days, and chatted about writing, which, at the time, I was only pursuing as a hobby. My biggest issue was always meeting new writers, networking in any capacity, so I wanted to make the most of this opportunity. I mentioned that screenwriting in particular was my passion, and Choc Chip quickly turned me on to a friend of hers who was also into screenwriting. She said we could all meet up, discuss writing, and go over each other's works. Awesome. Just to be clear, I was genuinely excited to talk about writing, but of course, there was a part of me, a large part of me, that was using this as an excuse to see Choc Chip and figure out if she was interested in me. I very quickly found out she was not. I drove to her place and wound my way down muddy, skinny roads, trying not to run my car into a ditch. There was absolutely nowhere to park near her house. I kept driving past it, thinking it might widen out or something. No, of course not, that would be too easy. Instead, the road twisted in on itself like a curlicue, winding up a slope and eventually ending in someone's personal driveway. The road was not unlike the race with Tricky the Triceratops in Diddy Kong Racing, both in form and danger. I made an awkward 20-point turn in their driveway and made my way back down, eventually settling on a muddy ditch in which to park my car. Not a great start, but at least I was finally there. I ascended the stairs, which had been constructed at an almost perfect 90-degree angle to the ground, blasting my tiny quads in the process. Vines had grown over what I thought was the front door, and a dog began barking from somewhere inside. I swear, Choc-Chip's house was designed to keep people out, not invite people in for creative discussions. If a gargoyle had swooped me, it wouldn't have been out of place. I finally found the correct front door and rang the doorbell. Choc-Chip answered, all smiles. She was holding a Yorkshire Terrier that looked far less menacing than its bark led on. She invited me through to her kitchen where she had prepared some tea. It was like I was at my grandma's place for a second. The other guest was also there. Let's call her Raisin. Raisin was, upon first appearances, the kind of girl that would talk through a movie in a crowded theater, only stopping to obnoxiously laugh and spit popcorn into your hair. You may think I'm being shallow, but trust me, if you met her, you'd understand. Her face was round like a pizza and just as greasy, with black olive eyes. Those eyes... they stick with me even now. The sorts of eyes that see the potential for evil in the world, allowing the user to bring it forth. Oh, how I hated those eyes. And her voice, hurt to listen to. Nails down a chalkboard would be putting it nicely. It sounded more like panicked parrots being funneled into a wood chipper. Choc-Chip introduced me to the demon spawn that was Raisin, and we exchanged pleasantries. Raisin was a screenwriter who studied the craft full-time and had a number of other screenwriter friends. I was excited at that point to hopefully meet all her other friends as well eventually. But right now, I was focused on having a good chat with Choc-Chip. I was soon disappointed on that front though. After a mere 5 minutes of talking, Choc-Chip excused herself. She was going to write in the other room while Raisin and I discussed our scripts. Wait, what? No, don't leave. Please, I wanted to talk to you. Come back. Come back! I turned to face my new friend for the next few hours. She had this grin on her face. I tried to decode it. Smug satisfaction? Yes, certainly, but there was something else mixed in there that I couldn't quite figure out. I already didn't have a great first impression of her, and now she was acting as the obstacle to Choc-Chip, the girl that I actually wanted to chat to. But, oh well, that would have to wait. I'd discussed the ins and outs of writing with Raisin for a bit. It couldn't be that bad. Oh wait, it could be. It could be very bad indeed. Raisin had the social wherewithal of a funeral celebrant wearing hot pants and a sombrero. Getting good conversation out of her was like drawing blood from a stone. Or drawing conversation from a stone, for that matter. I decided to give up on trying to talk to her and just drill into the scripts, keeping things as business-like as possible. We started with her script, because of course we did. There's no way someone like Raisin lets the other person go first. Let me outline to you the basic premise of her script, the elevator pitch, if you will. A boy puts on pajamas and is transported to 1830, where he meets a clockmaker who is in love with a dancer. In my opinion, an idea is only as good as its execution, but I can say with some confidence that this idea was stupid right off the page. Maybe that makes me judgmental, or maybe it makes her imagination just plain bad. It's definitely the second one. Anyway, I started reading through it. The script is only 12 pages long, as it's a short film, but it felt like it took an eternity to read, especially with Raisin's eyes burning into the top of my head from across the table. Oh yeah, that's the other reason it's a dumb idea. In a short film, she decided to introduce a time-traveling aspect, so Raisin wastes the first 2 pages out of 12 just getting this boy into 1830, when the clockmaker is actually the protagonist, and the boy isn't even important to the story, he's just an onlooker to this whole thing. And the dancer girl has one leg because apparently this script wasn't already convoluted enough. The one silver lining of this situation was that I knew I wouldn't run short of questions to ask her. When I finished, I looked up at her. She had an expression on her face like, "So, pretty good, huh?" I put on my constructive criticism cap and tried to find some nice things to say about her script. The dialogue was alright, and the idea might work if it was a longer movie, but ultimately, I needed to give my honest opinion. I raised all the aforementioned points in the nicest way possible, using examples from the script to support my points, and referring to common screenplay knowledge about pacing, story beats, etc. I swear, Raisin's reaction, she just nodded through the whole thing, then stayed silent when I was finished for a full minute, just looking at her script. Like a full minute. Then she said, "Yeah, I don't think we could date. What? What are you talking about, Pizza Face? I never said I wanted to date, and if you had mind-reading abilities, then you would know that I specifically do not want to date you. The thought of subjecting my ears to your voice for any longer than necessary makes me want to puncture my eardrums with syringes. I would never, ever date you for the simple reason that I am not a masochist. And even if I did, your reason for not dating me is what? Because I gave a negative critique of your script? I was knocked off kilter by a comment, and in the moment, perhaps luckily, I was only able to respond with confusion instead of anger. My response was, "Why would I date you?" which came out much harsher than I meant it to. I was trying to say, what gave you the impression that I was interested in dating you, but instead it sounded more like, why on God's green earth would I ever subject myself to the experience of dating you? Which, while more accurate, was far less civil. She seemed to be fluent in rude and insensitive, as she came back quickly with a response, not even fazed. Choc Chip said you were interested. Oh. Well then. This was more than a little awkward. After some discussion, it turned out that Choc Chip was trying to set me up with Raisin, a fact she was very aware of, but that I had absolutely no idea about. I felt like Alexander having my own terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. I informed Raisin in the only manner I knew that I wasn't interested, namely bumbling over my words awkwardly. She understood, and was very forward in expressing her own distaste for me. See, not liking someone can be so refreshing. When you truly don't like someone, their opinion ceases to matter to you. It's freeing. After some more awkward silence, Raisin suggested going over my script. I declined. She was glad. I had to leave in an hour anyway, so I decided to cut my time short and head home. I poked my head into Choc Chip's room to say bye. She came outside with me, still all smiles, to talk before I left. "How'd it go?" Choc Chip said, innocently enough. I felt betrayed by her. Yeah, Raisin was the monster I had just wasted an afternoon enduring, but Choc Chip was the commander who had sent me into the cave with her. I didn't have it in me to tell Choc Chip the truth of it all, so I just said, "Yeah, good, I'll see you soon," whilst knowing full well that was a complete lie. I escaped down the near vertical staircase, careful to limit how awful this day had been by not tripping and falling to my death. I slowly accelerated my car out of the bog I had left it in and made my way home. Perhaps it was an error in expectations that turned that afternoon into such a miserable time. It's like when you get a Choc Chip cookie and you go to bite into it with such hope and wonder in your heart for the taste ahead of you, but instead your tongue is greeted with the squishy tang of raisins instead. And worse than that, the raisins ruined the idea of Choc Chips for me. It was a perverse Ludovico technique in which my eyes were strapped open and I was forced to watch Choc Chips while ingesting raisins until I associated the disappointment of those shriveled grapes with the usually comforting side of gooey, sweet chocolate. So now, I try to temper my expectations slightly, to expect the raisins and instead be overjoyed when they're Choc Chips instead. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you all soon. If you enjoy what we do here at CultureCrash, please consider supporting the show via our Patreon, where we have a bunch of awesome rewards, or by checking out our online store. All links are in the description below.